Hi everyone, so in this video you will learn how to implement a prime number checker pseudocode and a flowchart, right? So let's recap what is a prime number. So a prime number is a number which is not divisible by any number except by 1 and itself. For example 7. Okay, so there are no divisors of 7 except 1 and 7 itself. But if we talk about 6, then it has multiple divisors like 1, 2, 3 and 6. So clearly 6 is not prime and 7 is a prime number, right? Okay, so if you want to check if a number is prime or not, then clearly we can check if a number has any one of the divisors from 2 to n minus 1, then it is not prime, right? So if it has any divisor in this range, right, then it is not prime, right? What we can do, we can again simulate a loop using flowchart, and this loop will start from 2, and then we can check if a number is divisible by I or not, right? So let's start by building the flowchart. So we have a start box, then we can read what is the number n. Okay, so this goes in this box. Then we can say, okay, let's say we will start from 2 and we will run till I is less than n, right? So till I is less than n, what I can say is I less than n. If this is the case, then I can check if n is divisible by I. If n is divisible by I, we can clearly say that we found out one divisor and clearly this is not prime. So if this is yes, we can say okay, this number is not prime, and we can stop immediately at this point. Print not prime, and we can say let's stop. Okay. But if it is not divisible by I, which means we have to check for the next number, right? So then we can say okay, we will do some kind of update to I. So if let's say 7 is not divisible by 2, let's check if it is divisible by 3. So we can say I goes as I plus 1. So I is incremented by 1, and again we come back to this particular point, right? So if this box gives you a no, which means I is now greater than n, right? So for example, if we're checking from 7, it is not divisible by 2, it is not divisible by 3, it is not divisible by 4, it is not divisible by 5, it is not divisible by 6, and now your I is equal to 7, right? So if it is greater than or equal to 7, which means this number was exactly prime, right? So you can say this number is prime. Okay, that's it. And finally again you stop. Okay, so this is how you can devise a flowchart to check if a number is prime or not. So what we did, we generate all the numbers in the range 2 to n minus 1, and we check if n is divisible by one of these numbers. And how do we check? So we keep a variable I, which is initially 2, and its value is incremented continuously inside a loop, right? And this loop runs till less than n, which means this loop is running till n minus 1 only, right? And every time we check if n is divisible by I, and if it is divisible, we say this number is not prime and we stop the loop. But if it is not divisible by any of these numbers, we say okay, come out of the loop and print this number is prime, and then you stop, right? So this is how you design the flowchart for the prime number. Now let's have a look how we can write the same thing in the form of a pseudocode as well, right? So our first step would be, we will say okay, read n. So let's talk about the pseudocode. So you will say okay, read n, and then you can say I equals to 2 while I is less than n. So from this point we are going to start a loop. So loop will start with a while, right? What do you need to do? You need to check if n is divisible by I, right? So this decision box is now converted into a if statement, right? If n is divisible by I, you will say okay, print not prime. We are going to say this is not a prime number, and we are going to stop. So stop means you're going to exit your program, right? Otherwise you will end the if block and there is no else block here, and you will increment the value of I. You can see if it is a no here, then you need to increment the value of I goes as I plus 1, and you will end the while block here. So this is your while block. Okay, and finally once you're done with this, you can say okay, I am out of the while loop, which means I have not exited my program in between, so which means my number is definitely, so it's a prime number, and now I can exit my program, right? So the same flow that we depicted here is now converted into the form of a pseudocode, right? So this branch comes here, this branch comes inside the loop, and this is the initial part, right? So this is how easy it is to convert a flowchart into a pseudocode. And here we complete our first example of pseudocode, that is the prime number checker. That's all for this video, guys. See you in the next part.